I'll start with Mr. Jantua. You realize that I like the fact that Mr. Jantua admitted that a Kumfi juice had become a symbol of the government's industrialization agenda. And we have not reached here just by a day's work. It's a work that started right as soon as the government took office in 2017. Because if you look at the data, in 2017, government's agenda between 2017 to 2019, the growth in the industrial sector alone was 15%. Meanwhile, during NDC's time, from 2012 to 2016, it was just 4.5%. So indeed, that there is something on the ground to show for it. It's not like people are sitting in offices and cooking figures. There is something to show for it. So I like the fact that Kumfi has become the poster boy of the government's drive agenda. And indeed, my senior then admits once again that Kumfi is working, contrary to what Mr. Abraham Amaliba sought to do to our listeners by trying to distort the fact that he's not seeing anything on the ground. Kumfi is indeed working. But my senior was then again wondering how come we're exporting Kumfi and not selling in the local market. Realize that some of these things are necessary for our own economic purposes. It is an example of such purpose is why we have free zones, where you create an enclave where people can manufacture products for the purpose of export, because you need it for the balance of payment purposes. Because other than that, your country will be heavily reliant on import. But you need to also create an avenue where you also earn a certain foreign...
Point of order. Please don't misconstrue what I'm saying.
Let me finish. When I'm done, please, you can come in. Then again, there's the issue about the president's statement on we going back to the international market to borrow. That's not the case. It is not for anything that countries are very much interested in rating, the outcome of rating agencies. I mean, the popular ones being Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor's. These things gives, for a foreigner who is outside, who seeks to invest in your country, you need a certain outlook. You need a certain outlook on the country's creditworthiness. You need an outlook as to how much your money that you're investing in the country will do. And so if the president says that we'll go back on, it does not necessarily mean that we are going to borrow. No, it only tells us that the country will be attractive enough for people to come and invest in. And so that issue, as much as the NDC has taken issue to it, it's just a deliberate agenda.
Yes, we spoke to
it's a deliberate agenda to, confuse the Ghanaian public and sort of tarnish the image of the president. The president didn't say that. He only said that we are going onto the international market because we are capable or we are credit worthy, and that is it. I think that is not something that we should even delve deeply into it. It ends there. That answers it. Then, of course, I want to respond to the NDC's claim recently. You see, I have here and something. I think that our NDC colleagues lately have been engaging in what, if I borrow from Honorable Bachi Jako, tinkering and pussyfooting. You see, you are not able to tell exactly what the NDC wants to do or where it has its position. And I make this statement taking cognizance of some statements from the minority especially. And, my senior then again mentions Honorable Ato Forson. And it saddens me, because if I were part of the NDC, I'll advocate that a person like Dr. Kwabena Dufo leads a discussion on the economy. What has Honorable Ato Forson got to show? And I have this story from my Joy Online, which was, published on 3rd May 2023. Ato Forson here says that the earliest time Ghana can secure an IMF bailout, the earliest, it means that all things being equal, the earliest, it means that it could even take us years or even impossible that Ghana can attain an IMF bailout is the 3rd quarter of this year. Where are we today? Haven't we succeeded in bringing the IMF bailout?
What's the point of this?
The point that I'm making is that the NDC doesn't have credibility or an understanding of what's at stake. The NPP time and again is demonstrating capacity despite the challenges, irrespective of the situation that we face. We have been able. It doesn't end there.
If I remember,
the poster boy of the NDC when it comes to economic discussions, Honorable Adongo. I'm coming. Let me finish.
Okay.
Adongo, who they tout as their economic whiskey, has said that Ghana's debt forgiveness request from China unlikely to happen. And you see, it hurts me because as a country, you have a president who is seeking to build a collective mindset for us to develop this country. Then there's the opposition, whose only motive, as I speak to you today, is aimed at, creating insecurities and, doommongers. And that is why I say that the NDC is engaging in tinkering and pussyfooting, because in one bread they are here, in another bread, and they don't even admit when they are wrong. And I believe the problem is that the powerhouse of a person who can speak better to the economy, which is Honorable Kwabena Dufo, they collectively ganged up to sort of mafia the man when he sought to lead them. And they've left the very person. They'd rather be chasing people who don't bring anything to the table. Then again...
Can you
Yes. Then again, you also have Mr. Mame's disposition. In fact, the IMF, time and again, have sort of supported Ghana's position that the Russia-Ukraine issues have been fundamental, and then the COVID-19 issue have been fundamental to the current challenges we face. If you look at issues of inflation, where prior to 2017 to 2019, we've had single-digit issues, and then compared to today, I mean, in any case, even with the situation we find ourselves, the inflationary rate as experienced in December is coming down. You attest to that. The IMF time and again have supported government's position that our books clearly show that indeed we're on a correct trajectory on some of these external issues track.
The same IMF, if you go to point 27, says
and then
Ghana
no,
has,
let me finish. Let me finish. I mean, don't distort my thoughts.
And also weakened.
Okay. Don't distort my thoughts. What I'm saying is that
public
Mahama
management
then comes out to go and attack IMF.
The same IMF that you credit.
And I'm reading from Ghana Web. Cause of economic problems. Mahama fires IMF boss for defending government. You think that the IMF is NDC civil society groups that can just get up and then issue any statement out there? They deal with the facts. They deal with the papers. Have you seen the letter the government wrote to the IMF before starting the engagement for this thing? I mean, you try to understand the NDC's position. Until recently, they've been using Ivory Coast and other countries that they become the symbol of African economic growth. And why is Ghana not compared? As I speak to you, Ivory Coast is before the IMF seeking 2.7 billion. And so the NDC is in no position to say anything about government's agenda because time and again, government has demonstrated, even when they've brought everything against the government. So, Roland, I think that, for the NDC, we can put them aside. Clearly, they've shown that they don't know what is at stake. And then bringing to your issue, if you don't mind reiterating the question that you put before me again. Yes. I mean, reiterate the question again.
Or you want to?
No, I want to now answer so that he can.
So I was asking that at one point in time, there seemed to be a certain distrust between what the president reiterates out there, because these are also well stated in the IMF.
I like that question. You realize that
the president doesn't seem to walk his talk.
My big brother raised the issue about borrowing. You see, there are three types of borrowing, essentially. You have the bilateral sort of borrowing that involves maybe Ghana and China, for which reason Ghana had to go and engage China separately before coming to the Paris Club. Then you have the multilateral systems where you have the IMF, World Bank, and co. And then, of course, the issue about international financial groups like the Eurobond and the likes that we have. Concessionary loans and all these.
The ones that we go for the capital market.
What is fundamental is that there is no country in this world which does not borrow. As I speak to you today, the United States, the biggest economy in the world, is one of the most indebted countries. Even to China, the United States owes a lot to China. And the discussion in America as at this morning is how to surmount the debt ceiling. Are you not aware of that? To the extent that President Joe Biden has had to cancel a trip to Papua New Guinea just to come home to come and have discussions about these matters. And so when the impression is created that Ghana has borrowed and blah, 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 every country to an extent is reliant on someone. Because there's that interlinkage and dependence. And the fact is that no country, as I maintain, can be independent of itself whatsoever. What matters is the element of self-reliance.
When did we realize this? Because it was a mantra of the vice president and then the president.
The issue about self-reliance, like my senior brother said, is something that all over Africa and our former president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, has championed the issue about self-reliance. But you see, what you need to understand, for which reason, even after, is very important to this discussion, is that Ghana cannot succeed in its self-reliance if it can only fend for itself and protect itself. So that if Togo has the ability to do a trade with Ghana, then it means that we are doing intra-African trade. Essentially, it means that we can even trade with our local currencies. And it hurts me that, as I speak to you today, even within West Africa, we've not advanced the conversation of ECO. We've not advanced the conversation as to how we'll create the relevant role and transportation networks that will help carry goods and services in and out. So that if Ivory Coast is going into, let's say...
Who's supposed to do that?
I mean, it's a collective agenda that the AU has to champion. Then, of course, wherever you have a
president is
wherever you have an institutional framework, and if I say institutional framework, it can come on the back of policy. So you are saying that, okay, we are going to build the Lagos-Abidjan West African corridor. That is more or less like for an institutional agenda. But what's the legislative framework? How do you build the structure that defines how you are going to attain it? So that you are saying that, each and every country should commit this amount of money per their GDP towards building some of these things. And that is why over the years we have failed to do. And I think that is something that cuts across Ghana. The president has demonstrated time and again that he is ready and committed to this.